Would you say that you have goals and dreams that you've been having a desire to accomplish, but the only reason why you haven't accomplished them yet is because of fear? Well, in this video, we're going to learn how to say yes to our fears so that we can finally create the success that we desire. If that sounds good to you, I do videos like this all the time, so please just share this video with one person. Thank you. So back in 2019, I had joined Toastmasters, and it's a public speaking organization, and I was being made aware of during one meeting that you can compete against other members of the other clubs in your area. I can't remember what one of the categories was, but I remember that you could compete for a humorous category. And all the members of my club, they kept saying, "Hey man, you gotta do this. This is meant for you. You need to do this." And I was like, what? I should do this? I'm not funny. I mean, like, I'm goofy. I like to be entertaining. I like to tell stories. But I don't, when I think of funny people and like really funny people, I think of comedians like Dave Chappelle, Kevin Hart. I like Cedric the Entertainer, Cat Williams, Steve Harvey, Bill Burr, George Carlin. You know, Marlon Wayans. These are the type of people who I find, Jim Carrey. These are the people who I find extremely funny. I didn't look at myself as a comedian, so at that time, it didn't make sense for me to compete for a humorous competition. And I have to admit, it was fear. Fear was preventing me from doing something out of my comfort zone that was going to help me grow. But they kept saying, "Man, Jadarius, you gotta do this, man. This is definitely for you. You're more funny than you think you are." And I said, "What? Wow." And my heart was beating fast because I had a decision to make. And I had to make it quickly. I mean, like, it sounded like an African drum in my chest, the way it was beating so fast and loud. And I said, finally, I'll do it. Without any hesitation, without any stuttering or stumbling, I said, I'll do it. Now, the challenge to that is that I made the decision, but I didn't know what I was gonna speak on. So I didn't know what was my game plan towards winning this competition. But it didn't matter because I made the decision. And there lies the key to saying yes to your fears. You can't give your mind the time to rationalize whether you should do something or not. Just make the decision to do it. Why? Because when we rationalize whether we should do something or not, more than likely, we're not going to do it because we're going to talk ourselves out of doing it. We're going to create every reason that we believe to be logical as to why we shouldn't do it. The worst question that you could ever ask in life that prevents people from creating the outcomes that they desire is, what is the worst thing that can happen? Why would you ask yourself that question? Why would you talk yourself out of doing what you wanted to do with that question? Because you open up all the possibilities of all the bad things that can happen to the point that they scare you. You see, fear is a mental mechanism that our mind uses to overprotect us from harm. So when we ask the question, what are the worst things that can happen? And we start to list out all the possibilities. Oh, we're not gonna do that thing that we desire to do because our mind is overprotecting us from creating harm. So to say yes to any decision that you desire to have, to not allow fear to mobilize you from creating the success that you desire, you just gotta do it. Don't give your mind the time to rationalize whether you should do it or not. Make the decision that you're going to do it. So I made the decision that I was going to compete. Now, all I needed to do was go in the archives of my mind to figure out what story that I was going to tell, that was going to be entertaining, that was going to be goofy, but that was also going to be authentically me. So I asked myself the question, what can I talk about that everybody at some point can relate to? And they're going to say to themselves, "Oh, I've been through that. That's funny." And something came to me. Something said, "Talk about the time when your dad gave you a skint." So I said, oh yeah, I could talk about that because that was when my dad cut my hair too low. Oh, that was so embarrassing. I didn't even want to go to school that day. Actually, no, I think that was the time because he done gave me a skint and pushed back my hairline a couple of times when I was young. But I believe this was the time when he gave me a skint and I came to school with my hair too low, and I was basically, I looked like a young version of Steve Harvey. I looked like I came as Steve Harvey on Halloween, and it wasn't even Halloween that time. Man, I came to school looking like a soft basketball with no roughness to it. I looked like a Tootsie Pop when you eat all the hard part off. It was just bad. So I started outlining this story and I started memorizing it and just thinking about all that I went through at that point. The embarrassment, the shame, the guilt, the frustration, the anger. And and I was gonna pour it all in that story. So it became the day of the competition. And what you didn't know is that I had already invited both of my parents to come out to hear me speak. I wanted them to see what I was made of. I wanted them to see that I was nothing to play with. Also, I wanted to talk trash about my dad. He didn't know what was gonna happen. Now, I think before we had arrived, they kept asking me what I was gonna talk about, and I was just keeping it to the chest. I was not gonna tell them at all. Matter of fact, I believe I had some props with me in the bag. I wasn't gonna show them either. So I remember arriving to this campus, and I remember my heart was beating fast because I had already made the decision that I was gonna do it. And my parents were here to watch me. So there was no backing out now. I remember going in the room. I remember seeing everybody. First of all, everybody was way older than me. I was 19 at that time, I believe. Everybody was easily 30 or 40 years of age older than me. And there was something in me as I walked in the room and I seen all the people that were going to compete. I had this hunger to do extremely well. Matter of fact, I didn't just want to do well and compete. I wanted them also to compete. I wanted them to do their very extreme best, because that was going to inspire me to go all in. I was going to cook that day and leave no leftovers. So I remember it was time for me to deliver the speech. And at first my knees were twerking.
What?
I couldn't stop shaking because I was a little bit nervous. But I remember looking at my dad, and I remember looking at my mom, and I remember looking at everybody else, and I remember thinking to myself, I got a job to do, and I'm about to do it well. Within the first minute of me communicating that story and my dad not knowing where I was gonna go with it, I was a little bit nervous. But as I got into my groove, as I felt more comfortable, everything just flowed off the tongue easily. Man, it was this one dude, I think he choked on his spit. He was laughing so hard and so much, and not just him. Everybody in the room was just vibing well to the story that we could all relate to as far as having a bad hair day. I remember when I finished, everyone had a smile on their face. Everybody was still laughing with the things that I said. And as I sat down by my dad, he had a big smile on his face, and he fist bumped me. And all because I said yes to the decision to just do it. I didn't give my mind the time to rationalize whether I should do it or not. I just did it. It allowed me to win that competition. Here's what we have to understand about fear. A lot of the fears that we have, the outcomes will never be us getting hurt, us being in the hospital, or our lives being ended forever. So what is there to really fear when you think about it? If those are the worst outcomes that can ever happen to us, but they won't happen to us, what is there really to fear? That's why it's imperative for all of us to not give our mind the time to rationalize whether we should do something or not. Just say yes to little to no thought and watch how life just unfold to be in your favor. Thank you so much for watching this video. Matter of fact, if you watch either one of these videos, I promise you they're going to solve the problem that you have.